Hey everyone, it's Wally from Supreme Gecko,
And Nanette.
and we have some very, very special guests tonight. We have Lindsay and Paul from A Sure Thing. Now, I know you've seen A Sure Thing all over social media. You've seen their amazing animals. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a fun show tonight. A Sure Thing, where did you guys come up with that? And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for
We
having
appreciate
us.
it. Go
So,
ahead.
Paul here likes to do a lot of play on words and dad jokes, and our last name is Shore. So he came up with A Sure Thing Exotics.
And it's
Perfect.
funny because a lot of people they don't really catch on until they see our names next to the logo that, oh, your last name is what it is. And then it's funny because then they all kind of realize where the name was coming from and usually get a good chuckle out of it. So it's a good icebreaker once they realize that.
I was assuming it was like on the shore, like on the East Coast or something, and
Oh,
that's where you lived, and it was on the shore your business was or whatever.
and I
Well,
took
yeah,
it as, go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say there's people that think that we have like vacation properties or we're
Yeah.
real estate people and we're doing beach condos or something like that sometimes. So,
And I took it as, until I made that connection, after years and years of looking at your names. Now, it wasn't that long, but I made the connection to, oh, if I buy from this company, it is a sure thing.
And that is exactly where he got the idea, because we are the Sure Thing.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So, how I usually start these interviews, and this is all fun and it's relaxing, non-stressful. And Nanette always has to start the interviews by adjusting me. So thank you very much.
Dusting you. I don't
No, you're
adjust.
adjusting me.
I'm dusting.
So I always start these interviews with not about your business and about your animals, and because that we're going to get to that. Tell us a little bit about Paul and Lindsay. What do you guys work? If you want to share, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? Family life? Anything you want to share to our viewers about yourselves?
Oh, well, I'm like, I don't even know. So, this is what I do full time, and I have for, gosh, almost 10 years. So the critters is what I do. And it's all from our house. And we have a 14-year-old daughter who's in a lot of sports and does a lot of volunteering, and I do too as well. We're part of clubs within our community. So like right now she's playing in 2 volleyball leagues and softball. So that's why we're doing this pre-recorded, because tonight's our first night off. Um,
always something going
yeah,
on with the family.
Always.
yeah. I do like crafting. That's kind of been my hobby. So after working all day long, I do volunteer like on the athletic committee. So we do lots of arts and crafts for that, fundraising and things like that. So just crafting is what I do and what my downtime, whatever that is when it's not animals. But yeah, but I do love the animals. Animals have always been my hobby. I've been running around the woods of Texas when I was a little girl, catching armadillos and lizards and frogs and prairie dogs and pigeons my whole life. So animals, I always knew I was going to work with animals. So, but met him and married him, and we make the joke that I lost the bet and married into the hobby. So he introduced me to like the world of reptiles and amphibians, and that it actually could be a business and big, I guess. I don't know. But yeah.
And
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just gonna say I've been doing this for quite a while. I actually have a marine science degree, and I joke with people the only time I get wet is when I'm playing with the frogs nowadays. And so I graduated college in '93, and before that, I had just done a lot with fresh and saltwater fish. So, even as a teenager, I was messing around and grew up in Western Pennsylvania, and the parents always said if I caught something, I could only keep it for a little while, and then we had to return it back. So
Yes.
when I got done with college, I had a friend who was leaving. They were going to move on to grad school, and they wanted somebody to take care of their ball python. I was like, sure, that'd be, a new challenge. And that slowly worked into, need to find somewhere to get food for it. Went into a reptile shop and was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And that was so different from the aquariums and from the fish world that I had been in. Just thought it was kind of neat. So I ended up talking my way into a part-time job there. And that was how I kind of cut my teeth. And that was in Florida. So early 90s in Florida, the hobby was very different from what it is now. So I've been able to see a lot of things change, and it's been pretty interesting. So, but I guess the one thing I wish I could do more of is drawing. I had an art minor in college, and I do a lot of work with markers, which is really kind of different. I really enjoy doing that, but I don't have much time now because I work a full-time job, so I have a 40-hour Monday through Friday, and then all my other spare time is pretty much dealt with helping Lindsay with the animals, traveling, and helping with the business and promoting our business and trying to make it successful.
One of the takeaways that I come away with that conversation is a couple of things. Number one, your 14-year-old daughter. We've tried to schedule this a couple of times, and I don't look at it as an excuse. I look at it as a priority. We can't this night because of our daughter. And that is admirable, to say the least, that you value family time so importantly in your family. The other takeaway that I have from that conversation is that Lindy kind of dabbled a little bit here and there and catching armadillo. I don't know what you did with the armadillos and pigeons, but
I kept it as a pet secretly for a while. Yeah, my mom. Yeah, I always had crazy stuff. Yeah.
And then you met Paul, and he just kind of pulled you into this hobby. And so at that time, Lindsay, were you keeping any reptiles at all? And at that time, Paul, how many did you keep when you met Lindsay?
I was primarily just focusing on frogs. Like I said, from the early 90s up until, Lindsay and I got together, I had specialized in amphibians. So I was primarily keeping mantellas, different dendrobate and Rhinotomia species, different tree frogs. The house that I was renting at the time, because I was also the general manager of a restaurant, my living room had terrariums and habitats in it, and one of the bedrooms did. And I don't think Lindsay really understood what she was getting into.
Not at all.
Or she would have ran away.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, so I haven't kept any reptiles or anything besides cats and dogs for years. And when we met, I actually just had our daughter, or my daughter Layla, and so I didn't have any pets. So I had her, so that was my pet. And then when we met, I saw the frogs and everything like that, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." But you did have Calvin, so you had a crested gecko.
I had one. Yeah, I had my first crested was given to me on my 40th birthday as a present. So that was 15 years ago. So yeah, that was the first lizard.
Yep.
I forgot.
And I fell in love with it. I thought Calvin was so cool, and never had seen him. I was not at all into the reptile world. Like I said, I was more into, cats and dogs. I've always had a dog and 3 cats. But Calvin was really cool. And when we got married and Paul had all this stuff, I did embrace it. I was kind of forced to, because my first birthday, he bought me, was it banded imitators?
No, I got you
Azurus. Okay, yeah. For my first birthday, he bought me frogs, which, mind you, I knew nothing about frogs. He did buy me some jewelry, so I was like, okay. And then my second birthday, I asked for frogs, and then from then on, we kind of grew our business. But at that point, I was like, well, Calvin needs a girlfriend, and that's kind of how we started. I think he knew it was a done deal. We were going to breed. So, and do something with it. But yeah.
I think that's the coolest thing because you have a little bit of a background in nature, and Paul is working, the aquariums and marine nature, as a background, and I'm guessing fish and the frogs, and it just seems like a natural fit.
Yeah.
I've got to ask.
It really was a natural progression, and I also kind of realized that the amphibians were a lot easier than the fish, which what was nice is, running a restaurant at the time, it gave me time to come home and still be able to take care of everybody, and it lended itself pretty well to that because I wasn't able to have the fish tanks, and I was actually pretty content doing the amphibians. So.
Yeah, and they were cool. They were really cool.
You say that, and I was surprised, but now that I think of it, I'm really not. As far as keeping fish as opposed to frogs, I just changed over 20 tanks from fish to geckos simply because fish take a lot of work, cleaning
They
and
do.
water maintenance and feeding and baby care and everything going on with that.
Are these scorpions down here?
They are. Why?
Okay, because they're like checking us out over here.
They are. Scorpion
They're, like,
tails
right
are
here looking
literally
at us.
looking at us as we talk. So probably because they're not used to this, because I swear all day when I'm in the office and they're not used to this.
They're probably off by now for them.
I've got to ask before we go move on. I have to stop the show and ask this. Layla, your daughter.
Layla.
Is it Layla?
Yes.
Layla.
Yes. Can't go on without asking this question. Is there a relationship with her name? And it's a beautiful name. Is there a relationship from her name to a music? Okay. All right. Then I'll move on.
Not at all, actually. Yeah, I know the song. I do know the song. Yeah, but not at all. Yeah.
One of my favorite artists. So, but Layla, what a beautiful name. If you have questions, Nanette, jump in and interrupt me and just put your hand over my mouth so I stop talking.
That won't stop you.
Let's move on. So you're keeping frogs. You've maybe thinking about other animals. At that time, I don't know if you were keeping, when you two got together, I don't know if you were keeping tropical fish, but what was the progression the next few years that actually moved you into more advanced keeping? Because you guys are advanced keepers. You're keeping some incredibly cool animals, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But tell us a little bit about that transition, if you wouldn't mind.
I think as much as anything, it was just curiosity. We both realized that there were so many different things. You'd go to an expo, and I think you would see just a species that you didn't know existed. So we would be like, okay, let's do some homework, and we want to work with that. And it's bad when you have two enablers together, because we would get home and be like, that was really cool, and we'd be like, I know. So we would go into looking into husbandry, and usually it feels like 9 times out of 10 there was nothing to be found on it, so we just had to kind of wing it. And we got really, I think, just the curiosity that we both shared, and the love of trying to figure out and find how to take care of a new species, how something that might not be common or popular, and trying to really let it thrive. And we kept finding things like that. And I think I realized how much Lindsay really enjoyed having the geckos and lizards. So I tried to encourage that, because I wanted her just to have something that she enjoyed as well. So I think it was a natural progression from just our both of our curiosity, and then I think I enjoyed watching Lindsay find something enjoyable.
Well, it was hard because when I married into this, I didn't know the difference in between a reptile and an amphibian. Like I wasn't, I don't want to say nerdy, but I wasn't sciencey nerdy. I liked cats and dogs, and I worked in the restaurant and the bar industry for 20 years. So I remember the first time we did an expo, I couldn't even pronounce half of the frogs' names. And people were harsh. Customers were hard, and they were actually really mean. So I'd have to get Paul, and I think for me, it was really challenging just to kind of prove to people like I can do this and I don't need to know their names, or the scientific names. But I can do it. And so for me, it was just a challenge of proving people, you know, that I could do it. Because it was very hard for me to learn so much. But for me, I felt like I would just sit home and I would watch the animals
Yeah.
and just enjoy them and kind of watch their behaviors. And Paul is Google. So anytime I ever had any questions, it was phenomenal that I could just be like, hey, why is this or this and this? And he would teach me. And, it, so for over the years, it was just, I wanted to be more challenged and then I wanted everything because everything's so cool. And, it was a whole new world for me. I felt like Ariel. So I was like, oh, what's this? Cool. I got this, so. And he was great, like you said, as an enabler. So it
I
just
think
spiraled.
yeah, I think Lindsay really had a learning curve,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, just like she was saying, it was almost a shame because they would be like, "Oh, what do you mean you don't know? Why should I be, talking to you about it?" And once they got over that first sentence, it was, "No, I take care of these, 24/7. I can tell you their entire life cycle. I can tell you their husbandry. I can talk to you about how to set up a habitat. Just because I might not pronounce the name correctly, don't hold that
Exactly.
against me." And it was funny because a lot of people appreciated that and really understood that anybody can do it if you have a positive person helping you with it. And Lindsay was really positive, and she could have been really, I think, really took that poorly and not done well with it, but she kind of took that as a challenge. And I think that that's why she does such a good job with the husbandry that she does. Is she is observant, she does understand what's going on with different animals. And I think people have finally understood that. And she might not know what it's called, but she can tell you 99.9% of the things you need to know about an animal. So
Yeah.
I think it's been a lot of work for her because, like I said, she did lose a bet and had to start doing this. So
Well, and I have to say that has to be a huge challenge. From the other side, Paul, you have the background. You have the scientific, you have the educational background to make that leap to reptile scientific names. That's not a far leap for you. I came from a fish background, so the scientific names were just a natural occurrence. So an angelfish is an angelfish, but as a fish keeper, and we kept 125 tanks, so we had a lot of weird, crazy named fish. So I migrated over to the scientific names more than the common names. Like, unfortunately, I still do that in a geeky way with the reptiles. So I'm assuming, Paul, that that's real natural for you. And now I can appreciate, probably how patient you were with Lindsay and building up that knowledge base. And Lindsay, how much probably you were a sponge absorbing all this, but more so your dedication to observation of the behaviors and how these animals reacted. That's the cool part. That's super cool.
Lindsay, did you work beforehand and then all of a sudden you guys just decided that you were going to be at home with the animals, taking care of them, or how did that develop?
So when I met Paul, we both worked in the restaurant industry, and the restaurant I worked for closed down.
Okay.
So then I got another job, and then that restaurant closed down, and I was like, all right, I'm done. So we decided that after that, and I'd been in the restaurant business for 20 years.
Okay.
So after that, I was just kind of like, I was burnt out, wanted to try and do something. Layla was starting to go, she was in daycare?
yeah,
No,
she
she was in,
it was like preschool daycare.
yeah, so she was going into
It was like half days.
pre-K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was like half days.
so she was going into pre-K. And that's when we were like, well, if I'm home with the animals, I can do the animals, try and build our business and then also be able to have the time with her, as she grew up with school. And then it just got to the point where I don't ever want to work for anybody ever again.
Yes.
I barely like working for this guy.
Let her
But-
believe
but-
she's the boss.
That's an easy decision. Once you make that transition over, it's like, yeah, you're right. I never ever want to work for anybody ever again. It's an easy decision to make. I'm going to talk about the business in just a second, but let's give our viewers a little bit of a background on the animals. Kind of go over, and I hate doing this, I really do, because it sounds like I'm asking people to flex and but set your egos aside and give us the facts. Give us the facts. How many enclosures are you running? We don't really need to know, the number of animals that you're keeping, but kind of give us a
Well, you won't get one.
Well,
cool.
well, what we do is the house that we're in right now, we have 4 rooms that are dedicated to animals. The room that we're sitting in right now is we call it the Gecko room. It has predominantly all of our Phelsuma species. There's a couple of amphibians in here that do a little bit of a higher temperature, so our milks and our dumpies. We have a number of New Caledonian that are towards the bottom, so like our lychees and our Saracenorums are in here. We have a lot of our smaller, and that's we remind people that all the time. We work with a lot of smaller species. So this room has a lot of smaller species, a little bit higher temperature stuff that can do on a little warmer high temp. But this room has 105 enclosures in it,
A lot.
which is our Gecko room. Our amphibian room is our other big room. It has all of our dart frogs. So all of our species of dart frogs are in there. It's got all of our other New Caledonians. So all of our cresteds, our gargoyles. There's our micro geckos are in there. So our micro gecko nursery.
But we have some micros.
Yeah, the
in here.
micros are back here as well.
It's
But,
yeah, it is a little weird because you did skip over, like, we have our snakes in here. We do have snakes in here, and then a lot of our desert species that are smaller that he's kind of talking about. So
how big of
Yeah.
a room is this?
not big enough.
Yeah, literally, like
It's probably
you
let's
can
think,
fit one person. I mean, it's a nice little kind of hallway.
probably 24 by 8.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's
Okay.
packed out. There's room to work and
Yeah.
not much else. So the house that we're in was a breeding facility for cats. So he had added on a lot of extra
Okay.
rooms, and it's kind of a mixed blessing where it's not tied into the central heat and air, which is great sometimes because then the humans can be comfortable and the animals can be at theirs, but at the same time somebody has to be here to help regulate temperatures.
Yeah, because each room has its own climate control. So each room has all of its own lighting, its own heating, and its own AC. So, and we have it, so the Phelsuma room is our lizard lounge. And then, like, we have the frog room. And then we have what we call our Sahara, which is another room outside that Paul had enclosed a patio. And so that room out there gets hot. And that's where a lot of our desert stuff is. We have the stenos, the plated lizards, the Peter skinks or wedge snouts. We probably have like 20 or 25 species out there. We probably have, so we work, I mean, like maybe 150 different species, give or take.
Yeah, between the amphibians and the lizards, it usually hovers right around there. One of the nice things is we look at, we kind of look at a year to year as far as, how many new species do we hatch on a yearly basis is kind of how we judge how the years are going. And we had 14 first time species we bred last year had hatch out between the amphibians and the reptiles. So, it does fluctuate a little bit just because we do work with other breeders as well. And if somebody can benefit by taking over a species or we think they're going to do better with it, we will work with our colleagues and then we'll absorb a new species. And, we were joking that the last couple of years, our lizard and reptile species collection had expanded so much that we hadn't really devoted as much time to the frogs. So this year we're spending this year and probably next year getting our amphibian collection back up
Yep.
to where it used to be. I always say that one of my favorite shows was we did the Baltimore Expo in 2019, and we took 52 species of amphibians to that show that we had produced. So it was pretty amazing. And again, it was before a lot of the lizard species and reptiles had really gotten increased for us. But that was always kind of a goal we'd like to get back to with the frogs. So
Yeah.
That's kind of tough when your interests change, and that's natural. It's absolutely natural to move forward with a group of animals. I had completely forgot about your Phelsuma collection, and I knew about your micros because I'm a huge micro fan, and I want to talk more about that. But you move forward with a group: reptiles, lizards, geckos. And then some of the other aspects of what you've been doing for years and years kind of takes I don't want to say a backseat, but a little bit less interest, a little bit less resources spent on them. That was us with the isopods, about 2, 3, 4 years ago. We just kind of hit a high point and started coming down, trying to reduce. We had 150 different enclosures for isopods, and we cut it down to like 30 or 40, the ones that we really, really wanted to work with. And now it's kind of building back up again.
Because you keep surprising me with isopods.
Surprise!
Yeah,
awesome.
we bred isopods. So we used to have a pet store up in Pennsylvania, and that's why we have fluctuated with stuff that we've had. So when we had our pet store, clearly we had a lot more room, and we bred oxalatos. I bred a lot of different morphs of the oxalatos. I really enjoyed that. It was a lot of work. We bred a lot of isopods and springtails and millipedes. We worked with a lot of different species of roaches, and we still have roaches and isopods and some springtails and spiders. So we dabbled in, a lot of different species that way as well. But when COVID hit, we ended up closing the pet store and then moving here to North Carolina and had to downsize. We've also had to take care of a lot of elderly parents and things like that, so those have been challenges that we've had. But now that we are just Paul and I, we're, focusing on animals and regrowing our business again and trying to build back up to where we were when we had the store.
And again, that's very, very natural. Paul said something that kind of sparked a huge interest in me, and that is that you gauge the success of your previous season. You didn't say anything about, this stuff. You didn't say anything about more animals. You talked about your success being gauged by the number of new species that you've bred. What that takes is a couple of things. Well, number one, you're getting new species in and doing the research, and then getting new species in, and then keeping those species the right way. And finally, number three, breeding those animals. And my gosh, guys, I completely agree. A good indicator of success is to be able to keep and then breed an animal. That's kind of what gets me is I feel like if I can get that first baby, I've done something right. So I like what you just said there a whole lot. You're not talking about spreadsheets. I use the word spreadsheets.
You did.
Had to in the show.
Good job. You have to do that in every show.
Somehow I have to work the word moist in some there.
You just did that too.
There we go. Got that covered.
It's done.
But you guys have, you're not talking about spreadsheets and budgets and stuff like that. You're talking about here's a new animal that we learned about and succeeded with. So hats off to you guys on that. Can you kind of walk through? I'm gonna dive into the gecko realm, and I could spend the whole show talking about your other species and unbelievable, especially the frogs. Let's talk about the geckos because I'm selfish and it's my show, and I want to talk about geckos.
There you go.
Wow. What species are you working with? Now, I know that it's a lot, and you mentioned Phelsuma. That's so cool. And you mentioned micro geckos. Kind of walk through some of the types of geckos, and if you want to name off the species, that's super cool too.
I'll tell you.
So I think what we
You.
realized is Felsumas, we weren't sure how long they were going to be in the hobby. You know, you hear every year, oh, Madagascar is going to close down, Madagascar is going to close down, and you know, there's obviously reasons why. But what we did was we kind of looked at each other and went, we want to keep these in the hobby. So you know, we got we know a bunch of people that are either importers or deal with wild caught stuff, and you know, as you can probably attest, a lot of the species that you work with, I mean, they've got to start somewhere in the hobby. So you know, we ended up picking up some wild caught of just gold dust, lines, and peacocks to kind of get started because you know they're fan favorites and they're a little bit smaller, a little easier to maintain. So we started breeding those just to kind of get the husbandry down and make sure we knew what we were doing.
And they're beautiful. And they're beautiful.
they are.
And easy to keep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they were definitely my favorite because don't forget we also had it was the the Madagascar, Madagascar, and then there was
as well.
and then there was another species, and I can't remember the name, but it was a lot smaller. So we were trying to get ones that also weren't as common. And because we were very lucky that we were doing shows all the way up north and then we would come down here. So we got to see a lot of different variety. And so unfortunately though, I think we got stuck with all the same sex of a bunch of them. So then we hooked up with other breeders and we made sure they got them and, you know, we're able to work with them, which they have been very successful with them. But yeah.
That was good though. But, you know, we originally just, you know, we wanted to, again, try and keep that stuff in the hobby and then also learn from it. And just like Lindsay said, she really got to enjoy them. So we added on to that. You know, we've got Robert Mertens, we've got Cepidinias as well. We have some of the Hawaiian blue gold dust. We have one pair of those. We also started doing some Lagodactylus species, which are day geckos. They're just from the mainland. So William's Eye, which are beautiful. Everybody loves those. We were breeding those. The Cameroon dwarfs, the Conner eyes, Kim Howelli's, which a lot of people aren't even familiar with. We've been breeding. We have 12 of those in the nursery right now, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just been a progression as far as day geckos and understanding, okay, you know, they're all the same, but they've all kind of got their own little nuances, which is kind of neat. And Lindsay's really good about figuring that out, just because she does put her eyes on them and she's got that day in, day out husbandry, which is nice because, you know, she can watch and make sure they're you know, not fighting or, okay, is that natural behavior, do you think? Have we seen it enough days in a row that we think it's something that is going to happen naturally, or is it something that we have to intervene and make sure that, you know, health doesn't suffer because, you know, they're fighting, you know, trying to figure out, okay, is that fighting or is that natural? Okay, so that's something that Lindsay's really good at. And then it's funny, I'll get a text at work because, again, I do have that pesky 9 to 5 that drives me crazy. You know, I'll get a message or a random picture, and I'll be like trying to figure out, what am I looking? Oh, okay, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, so then we'll figure out, you know, what needs to happen and kind of brainstorm for a second. And you know, the day geckos are just yet another group of lizards we work with they're amazing. I think they're so pretty. I think they're still really underrated. You know, I think a lot of people know about Grandis and they're like, oh, these all get this big. And I'm like, no, those are the exception. Those are the monsters. And all the rest of them are pretty much a lot smaller and half the size of that. So educating people a lot about those is always really wonderful too, because, you know, they get an appreciation when they can see something on a day gecko that they had no idea even existed. And, you know, and then for us to be able to tell them that, no, we bred that. That was something that we produced. You know, mom and dad are at home. These are the babies. These aren't, you know, wild caughts. And, you know, I think it goes a long way. And it's one of the things that we really enjoy talking to people about. You know, just like with everything, but just like you're saying, the day geckos are such a niche thing in the hobby that, you know, I think either people love them or they're just not aware of them more than anything.
Yes. Before you talk about any other groups, any other genuses, let me stop you for Phelsuma. Give me a couple of tips on Phelsuma, keeping and breeding Phelsuma. Think about a couple of tips that, boy, if you want to succeed with keeping them or especially breeding them, you should be thinking about doing this. This is what I've
I do
learned
have one
over,
tip.
So
right?
what's funny is one of the simplest things is have covers in between your habitats,
Mhm.
because the boys are going to get so if the boy is so distracted because there's another male next to him and he spends the entire day trying to get into that other tank to show him who's boss, you're not going to be successful, just because you now have two stressed out animals, and you don't know if they're acting normally, you don't know what's going on. So addressing each habitat almost as an individual and understanding who's in there and what you might have to do for those. Because the other cool thing about Felsumas is they have a lot of different personalities. So you
Yeah.
might have one that's really bold and you know that he's going to be out and you're going to see him all the time. And there's another one who's hiding in the back of the tank and you have to remind yourself that it's in there. And then, oh, okay, he is fine because now I've waited for 20 minutes to see him come out. So understanding that felsumas are not a rinse and repeat kind of thing. You have the general husbandry that does translate over for all of them, but you really have to learn the individual that you have, and taking that extra time, heaven forbid you spend time and get to enjoy your animal, but, look at them and really try to figure out, okay, how do I need to help this animal and help it thrive? So, the general husbandry is a rinse and repeat kind of thing. Having great lighting for it, having those really good full spectrum lights, making sure that you have a proper heat gradient for them so that they can warm up and then also cool down when they need to, just to help with their shedding, help make sure that their, diet is well rounded, giving them those supplements, giving them the wet food and the live. We use crickets for everything. And, our cricket bill is absolutely ridiculous at times, and but it makes a big difference with the animals. They
Oh,
get that natural hunting where they can go after it, and I think it allows them to be a lot healthier, and you actually get to see how they would be. So you're going to enjoy them more too, I think. So, understanding how each individual tank differs from the one right next to it goes a long way, I think.
God,
That's a good point.
spot on.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever have. I
Thought
have.
about it.
I don't think I've net. How do I say this? I have never heard that point so well established that putting barriers between your enclosures. And I think that I think about it because of the fish and the interaction with the fish. And I
Mhm.
always paint one side black. But that's such an important point. Not so much with some of the other geckos, but especially with the day geckos, because those males and sometimes the
Yeah.
females will go nutso because
I
they,
didn't realize
like you
that.
said, Paul, they're trying all day long. That's all that they want to do.
Yeah.
What a
Well,
fantastic point.
and also too, because we'll have friends come over and they'll come look at the tank, and unfortunately, some of my males, they like to mark their territory, and so they poop on the front of the tank, and I'll scrub them off, and they will go and poop. But to me, I notice like whenever I don't keep it so pristine and clean, they're not as spazzy. They don't go as crazy because they've marked their territory, they've put their scent there, they've made their mess, and they've let me, Godzilla, know that that's their area. So I tell my friends, don't mind the poop. It actually helps them, like makes them feel better. So that it's gross, but I do think that helps them as well, and is another kind of just weird thing. I don't know.
See, I kind of thought that they were pooping on the glass
To make you mad.
in spite of me. Yeah,
Mhm.
just to pee me off. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
No,
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 it's not a
I,
commentary on your feeding schedule. It's definitely a no. This is my house, and I
That's
don't care how big
interesting.
you are.
yeah. I have one Felsuma, which ironically enough, I bought it for a friend, sent it up to him. I think, where were we? We were in, anyway, it doesn't matter. So I sent it off to him. He had it for a couple years. I got the lizard back, and we still have a really good connection because he'll come up to the glass and kind of
Oh,
hangs out in the glass, and we'll run back in. Like, I never have to worry about this one Felsuma running out. But he also doesn't poop over all the glass. But if you look at, the tank next to it, which is gold dust, poop everywhere. But the peacock that I have a nice little relationship with, I can hand feed it. It stays in its tank. It doesn't spaz out on me. There's no poop, which was kind of
And
interesting.
it is one of the craziest things though, because you have these everybody's like, oh my gosh, they're cool to look at, but you can never have any kind of interaction with them. Some of the interactions that Lindsay has with these Felsumas is amazing because I'm like, she'll be sitting there with the door open. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I know who that is. It's okay. This is what we do. This is our thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'll sit back and trust the process. But it is neat. And I think that's a testament to how much that Lindsay is around them and how much they do understand what she's doing for them. We all think they're just really simple, but they do have a lot of different personalities, and I still can't get over that one every time I see it because I'm like, if it was me, he'd be halfway across the room and I'd be diving on the ground, and for her, he just sits there and it's great.
Yeah, every time he opens the tank that's in our bedroom, I just freak because I'm sure it's going to be out, and then I'm going to be in bed and find an animal in bed. And it doesn't come out though.
Yeah.
Usually.
But you learn your spazzes. You learn which ones you can't do that with because
Yes.
I'm not a whisperer with all of them, just a few of them.
Exactly. I'm going to ask one more question with the Felsuma, then we're going to move on to some of your other exciting animals. But for Felsuma, one of the things that really has frustrated me with Felsuma is the one male, one female. Oh, Wally, you can do better than that. You can keep two females together in the first 2 or 3. God, why did it take me 2 or 3 times to learn this? Good. I'm the Felsuma god here. I can keep 2 females with my male. And then you walk in and people can comment on how reckless I am, but you walk in and one of the females is on the ground, shredded. I have never seen more violence in a gecko tank, and you don't see it coming. I don't see it coming.
Well, they were fine.
There's no marks or anything, and then one of them one day is just
all
absolutely
beat up.
Do you guys find the same thing? Have you witnessed that? Have you experienced that?
So we don't do that. So we only
You're
have male,
smarter than
female.
I am.
Yeah. So we actually, so we have one species, the Kimhawalis. We do have a 1.2, and watching their behavior, they're so compatible. Like they don't have any aggression. So I don't notice that with them. But with the Felsumas, we keep just male, female together. And when I first started learning them, we did keep the babies together, and I would notice that, if one was growing a lot faster, we definitely had to pull the other one out. I do think that they're more just, I like being by myself, and if we come across each other, fine, but make sure we have enough space. Standing eyes, though, aren't like that. Standing eyes you can keep together. It's crazy.
Isn't that odd? So viewers, don't do as I do as Lindsay and Paul does. So they are fascinating, and I think you're right. I think the bigger the species, the more of that, this is my house and nobody else. And cohabitate, and then one day they're just, no, this isn't working. Let's talk about some of your other animals. I want to jump right over to micro geckos.
Because it's your show.
Because it's my show and I can. Micro geckos. You guys, I kept micro geckos for so long, and I kind of got out of them because it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of work if you're keeping other animals that are different in feeding habits and lighting, and it's a lot of work. So hats off to you guys for keeping micro geckos. Kind of go through your list of micro geckos that you're keeping, if you don't mind.
I don't know them.
So
We got that really little one.
another
The little one and the little bit bigger one.
Yeah. Well,
Sounds just like
primarily what we work with are Spherodactylus, the Ganotes, your Lagodactylus. A lot of people still consider that in there. But the true little guys are the Spherodactylus, and they are so tiny. You're looking at a baby. I have to have pictures on my phone because people don't believe me when I tell them how small the hatchlings are. When you're looking at a brand newly hatched lizard and it's maybe 3/4 of an inch long, it's amazing at first and then scary because you're like, how am I going to move this thing
Gosh, yeah,
without
it's
something
so
happening? So it's,
nerve-wracking.
yeah, there's been a big learning curve with those. I always tell people, we're really only 5 years in on micros, so we're still learning on a regular basis. But we have learned a lot about the species we work with, and we're able to help give people advice and be successful with it. But yeah, those are the two main genus that most people consider. Obviously you do mourning geckos as well. Everybody's got mourning geckos.
On the endo.
And the Indo-Pacific is another one. The Indo-Pacific tree gecko is more of a mainland version of the mourning, and it's like you took a mourning gecko and just stretched it out and made it really long and lanky.
Well, what's the desert ones outside?
The Strudner's pygmy. So we do have arid ones as well. The Strudner's pygmy was another one that we hatched for the first time last year. We have a colony of those. The Benois are another one. The prickly geckos, another parthenogenic species that we breed. Some people lump the Stenodactylus into that as well, because a lot of those guys were little, especially hatchlings. So it's more of the traditional, what people consider micro geckos, and then they're like, well, those guys are little too, and I'm like, well, yeah, they're more of an arid micro geckos. So we just joke where if it's little, it's usually something we're going to be interested in and want to work with. So
Well, so how many do we work with though?
we've got about 26 different species when you consider the couple of the different types that people kind of lump together as micro geckos. But the Spiros and the Ganodes are the traditional ones that most people consider.
I
probably have the yellow heads.
I think about this, and I've been asked this so many times about what's a micro gecko, what's your definition of it, and it's hard. It's hard, but I just thought of a good definition, and you can confirm or deny this, but to me, now that I think about it, a micro gecko is one that is even too small. The babies are even too small for fruit flies.
No, because it's funny. You can get a brand new ashy, Sphirodactylus elegans.
Yeah.
You'll get a brand new hatchling. It's 3/4 of an inch long, and it looks like a velociraptor going after the fruit flies. And you see it, hunt and everything, and it's just like on a micro scale where it goes and tears it up, and you see it shaking it violently, and it looks like, and you realize that this whole thing is this big that's going on right now.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Who Shrunk the Lizards kind of movie where you're looking at it.
Well, what's the really tiny crickets that we have?
Because we do get 1/16 inch crickets.
And they'll eat that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll
Even
tackle
hatchlings.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, newborns, probably newborns.
It's just up from an actual pinhead, so it's kind of nice. I hate messing with pinheads. It's like you order pinheads, you get them in and you use them that day because you're going to be hard pressed to keep them for a couple days. So that's why we've used 1/16 as our smallest size of cricket, and that's been much more user friendly on our side, and the animals can still tackle them. They are small enough that you got to look at a ruler and look at 1/16 an inch.
Yeah,
it's
tiny.
still pretty tiny. So
we also have the Arabians, which is another desert species, and so all of those tackle the 1/16.
Perfect. For the micro geckos, let's take the stenos, or I pronounce it gatatoides, and I'm sure I'm wrong, but some of those geckos. Give us a tip for anybody that wants to start off with one of those micro geckos.
The Ganodes or the Sphirodactylus?
Let's take the Ganodes and the Sphirodactylus, because they're kind of the same-ish. I know they're differences, but
beware of babies. I don't know.
I think one of the biggest things that you need to make sure of is not to overhydrate them. Give them a proper humidity gradient. That was one of the hardest things that we were learning is you're dealing with a very small animal in a very small enclosure, but you still need to give them both a temperature and a humidity gradient. And it's something that if you're not, you don't take a deep breath and go, okay, now we're working with micros. Because a lot of the other species that people work with, they're a lot more forgiving. They've got a larger habitat. They have more substrate. They've got more areas within that habitat where you have these microclimates. So when you're dealing with the micros, you really have to pay attention and make sure that you're not overdoing it. It's really hard to bring one back that's been stressed out because it's had too much moisture and you've done it, and it's kind of counterintuitive. Um, because it says, they're from the Caribbean islands, so it should be really humid. And I don't know about you, but when you go to the islands, it's pretty hot and can dry, and then you'll get a rainstorm, and then it dries out again. So you always want to kind of think and remind yourself where they're from, and go, oh no, they don't need that real constant high humidity. And I think that's probably the biggest mistake that people do. And it was one of the things that was big in our learning curve and being successful, was being able to keep that in mind and really address that small habitat and still make sure that you have all those gradients where they need to be.
What a good point. I go back to my fish keeping days, and I spent as much time on my 5-gallon killifish live bearer tanks, probably more time than I did my 125. My 125, I can make some mistakes with, and it's big enough to absorb those mistakes. A 5-gallon, you make a mistake and it's done. Period. It's gone.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's a hard lesson to learn, and especially if you've only dealt with larger tanks, if you're used to spraying 18-24s all day, and then you go down to a nano, and it's just like, you really have to consciously make that decision to be like, okay, this is different. I have to remember that.
Yeah,
So,
I do. Like when I'm transitioning from each room and then transitioning from each species, like I do have to reset my brain. And there's some days I'm on automatic and I'm like, oh, whoa, no, okay, hold on. Let me, wrong size crickets and this and this and this. And yeah, it's a lot.
Another thing, I'm going to throw this in as well. One of the keys that I realized early on with micros was that they have a different metabolism because they're smaller. So I tended to feed, I would feed my babies I still feed babies every other day, if not every other day, every day. But for the micros, I fed them every day because I just felt like they wanted that energy burst, and their metabolism was so fast, so high, that I had to keep them constantly with some food in their enclosure.
It does make a big difference, but it's also one of those, also with the learning curve, because you want to have that food present, but you don't want to have so much that it stresses them out. So
yes,
you want to make sure you always have something that they have options, but not so much that they're like, oh my God, what's going on? And that's something else that I think takes some practice. And it's better to underfeed but feed every day than it is to overfeed and try and do it every other day. So.
Man,
yeah.
Wonderful points. So micro geckos, I'm going to ask the question. I hate these questions. I hate them, but I know our viewers are asking this question already when they watch this. I'm going to ask it anyways. What's your favorite micro gecko? Which micro gecko would you like to get that you don't
go
have?
First. Oh, to get that we don't have? Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Both.
Sphirodactylus fantasticus is one that I've seen and we do not own yet. I would love to add that. It's a bit of a larger species of Sphirodactylus, extremely colorful. The males are amazing. The girls aren't ugly, which is great because some of the times there's such a difference between the boys. You have this fantastic pattern, and then the girl looks like a leaf, and it's like, okay, we still appreciate you, but the boy is really, really pretty. So those are amazing. So
I don't think so. I don't have any that I want, just whatever he shows me, and I go, cool, yeah. I don't, and I think that is one that we have talked about getting. But my favorite's not necessarily a micro, but can be considered, are the Stenodactylus. Those are my favorite. And I've really begun to love the Strudners, if I'm saying it right. So the Strudners, they're really cool. They are a micro, but I don't know. I love every single one that I get for different reasons, and which is why we get them.
I thought it was a Phelsuma chasing after each other. It was a cat.
Oh yeah.
So I couldn't tell what it was.
Yeah. Well, you can't really see, but what we had done is we built our cats platforms on top of all the tanks. So they have access in because we have Bengals. They love the heat. So they love sleeping on top of the tank. So in order to keep the tank safe, we built them platforms so they can jump from each kind of
Okay.
area.
They can pretty much go around the entire room,
Yeah.
and they do, and it's
How
hilarious.
cool is that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so the cats literally have a catwalk on top of all of the tanks in this room, and as much as anything to keep them from going through the tops of the tanks, but also just because they really enjoy it. They're climbers, and
They're a mess.
they are a mess.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, though. Very good idea. I
How
want
do
to
you
go ahead. Go
on
ahead.
your micros?
Yeah.
And this really gets me sometimes. We'll get them and they'll breed, and we get these gorgeous, gorgeous babies, and then they grow up. How do you
Mhm.
feel
I know.
about that? Isn't that
I
the
think-
colors
I-
change so much sometimes, and it's like,
I know.
why
I
can't
think
they
if
stay
the
like that?
I think if the elegans, the ashies, the babies, if the adults look like that, it would probably be the most popular gecko in the hobby. So I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. It kind of makes me crazy that you look at the baby and you just. But there's also some of the other ones. Dimorphicus starts out as a black gecko.
Yeah.
And it transitions into a really light body with a white head and black dots. I mean, it's absolutely stunning as adults. So you do have some that go back the other way.
Oh,
Yep.
well, you breed them. The other stumpies.
Oh, the Venzimbas.
Oh, not the Van Zimbas, the other ones.
The start eye.
The two
The
that we
start
had.
eye.
Yeah, the Bastardize.
The Bastardize. Yeah,
Yeah.
those were, I think, are also another one that come out, and thick toes. We breed those. They come out really pretty, and if they stayed like that, and then when they grow up, you're like, cool, you're just a weird gray,
Yeah, exactly.
brownish.
This is the one
Yeah.
that we have that has the orange tail, and we take them to the show, and then it's like,
Oh,
these are the babies, and then they'll go, what do they look like? And then you show them the adult, and they're like, oh, I want that.
I'll do that little teaser with here's some babies. These are so cool. Oh my gosh. But here's the adults that I'm selling because I can't sell the babies. I'll do that with the Zimbas because they have the really orange tail. I'll also do it with the Pachydaculus, Oreophyllus,
That's
because
the one I'm
they're
thinking of.
black and white.
They're gorgeous.
Oh,
They're gorgeous as
okay.
little teeny tiny geckos, newborn to about a month or so. And then they turn into the sandy gray that looks not so attractive. And people go,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I want some of these. Oh, they're tiny babies are hard to really care for. Here's the adults if you want a breeding pair. No, if that's what they turn out to be.
Pretty.
So
Yeah.
I want to be honest and everything.
Yeah. It's so anticlimactic when
Yeah.
you see that.
It is.
It's like, oh, that's what they are?
That's what they are.
That's what that's going to do.
But they're really cool.
They are cool. I want to talk
Yeah.
about Spherodactylus, but I want to jump back really super quick to the micro geckos, and I just want to bring this one up. And Paul, you made such a great point. Nanette, you're right that a lot of these small ones grow up and they look kind of Oreophyllus, look like not that great of an animal. But to your point, Paul, we kept Spherodactylus. I'm going to say it wrong, probably Toriae.
Mhm.
And those, if I would like to keep them again because I would still rank them in the top 5 of my all-time favorite geckos that I've ever kept because the males are beautiful, just absolutely beautiful with the reds and the purplish hues, but the females are little bumblebees with the white with the yellow and black banding. Super cool. So good point, Paul, for bringing that up.
Yeah, they look like convicts, the females do. And then, but what's neat is all the babies start out that way. We work with that species, and that was another one that we had for the first time last year. And yeah, they do all start as little black and white bands, and then over time, once they become mature, you'll start to see them go through this weird change in their pattern, and then they'll end up with that final male pattern, which is so different from the females, just with those bands of color and that big splotch of white in the middle of them. And you would never guess that they were the same species. If you had them in 2 separate containers and you took them to somebody who had never seen them before, I think that, 99 times out of 100, they would be like, there's no way that's the same animal, the same species. So
Exactly.
that's one of the things that I think is really neat about them, though, is is how different they are. Being able yeah, you've only got two in a tank, but you have two completely different looking animals. So I think that's kind of enjoyable. And then, trying to learn the difference between them because, you have to learn that this species female looks like this, but the boy looks like this, but this female kind of looks like this female. And so it's a challenge when you're trying to first learn. And I think that first batch of micros that we got in, it took us like 2 months to figure out exactly because they weren't labeled. So we didn't.
Oh, wait, which first batch of first batch?
Those,
The one.
at the Winston, yeah.
Oh
At
my
the
goodness.
Winston
Yeah,
house when
we got,
those in.
oh yeah, we got like 30 micros in and they weren't labeled correctly. And
Oh,
yeah, that was definitely a lot of fun. Yeah,
same
that was
thing
fun.
happens with Stenodactylus. I've done this a couple of times. You get a batch of them in. I'll take 10 of them. They're newly into the country. They're imported, but I'll take 10 of them, and you just don't know what you're getting.
Yeah, we did that a couple years ago. We thought we were getting the Dorii, the Petridae, and the Stenos, and they were all Stenos. So I was like, cool, I've got 40 Stenos. So, but now we breed them, and we always have a ton of them, and I do love them, and they're actually really, really one of my favorites, just because they do have great personalities, and they're just so cool, and they squeak. They make so much squeaky noises.
Stenos are super hot in the hobby right now. They really are. I get asked all the time, and I'm going to be very honest. I'm not brown nosing or anything, but I refer everybody over to you guys because I know that you're breeding them.
Thank you.
Oh no, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of, because they're such a fascinating animal, give us a little bit of a care, give us the 2 or 3 minute care guide on Stenodactylus, or stenos in general.
You just, well, but you're at shows all the time, so you explain it. I haven't done a show in like 2 years. Like I throw in food and I fill their water, and it's boring.
I think one of the coolest behaviors that they do is because they do enjoy digging in their habitat. If you have a nice deep layer of the sand substrate for them, they really enjoy that. The thing you have to remember, though, is they are diggers, so you have to make sure there's nothing that can collapse on top of them. So any hardscape that you have in there that's got any weight into it, you need to have it on the very bottom of that habitat and then fill the sand in around it. So the great thing about the stenos is the fact that they do so well in colonies. I think that's one of the things that people really enjoy about it, because like we were talking about earlier, it's like, oh, I want to put as many of them as I can in here. And we're like, well, it's normally not a good idea. But with these guys, they do, they do so well in groups.
I think one group we have is 14, and that's only because they're breeding. And then I didn't catch all the babies. And then we did add some more into it, but yeah, but they really do cohab really well, and they love their little basking spot. But like Paul was saying, this one tank, because it's a lot of fine sand, and when you missed it, the sand kind of my phone's going dead. The sand hardens, and so they dig tunnels. So it's actually almost like an ant colony where you see the tunnels underneath. You can see it on the glass, but you do have to be careful because once it dries out, it will collapse easily. But yeah, they do. They love burrowing, and sometimes they'll just bury themselves. But I do miss them. I feed them daily. They do love also soaking in a water bowl. And they go in our very hot room. I feel like it's like 1,000 degrees in there. He knows all the technical, like how hot it is, and
like we were saying, it's a room that it's miserable for the humans, but all the animals really enjoy it. And I mean, they're low end. I think one of the things where people are not successful with them is they just don't keep them hot enough. They're like, this little animal, I'm gonna bake it if I keep it at that temperature, and I'm like, that's where they thrive. You really have to remember where they're from, and understand that it gets hot there. So that the shelf that our 3 colonies are on usually runs about 88 degrees as a low end, and goes up to about 115 under their heat lamps. And again, we do have a large paver that's in there that's flush on the bottom, like we were saying. So, and then we have the sand built up around it. and then you stack a bunch of cork. Cork is a really nice thing to work with because it's light. You can move it. You can work with it really well. And so we utilize a lot of cork in their habitats. And you can stack and increase that surface area for them and give them all those little nooks and crannies for them to go in and find somewhere comfortable. And I always tell people, if you give them the options, make sure that, you know, you give them a good temperature gradient. You make sure they have access to that water, even from the desert. Like Lindsay was saying, they will go in and sit in that water, which is crazy. But if you give them the options, they'll use it. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, they might keep the habitat too static, where everything is at same temperature, same humidity, and they don't give them those options. And I think that's one of the reasons that people might not be successful with them is they just don't get them hot enough, and they don't give them that room to explore.
I want to double check with you just so that I get these facts right, and our viewers can. I want to repeat this so our viewers get this. Ambient is maybe 88-ish, and the hot side is 115.
Yeah, because there's like a 50-watt bulb that is about 5 inches over their basking spot. And like I said, the funny thing about it is that room is usually in the mid 80s. They're on a higher shelf, which puts them at about 88 on the low end. Yeah, they like it really hot.
Yeah, and I pulled probably this year. I pulled probably 15 to 20 babies out of each tank.
You're letting the eggs incubate, you know, in the tank. Yep.
Yeah. We just let mom and dad figure out where it is, and it's not been like, oh, it's been so hot you only get one gender. We've gotten both genders out of there as well, and a fairly even distribution as well, which is kind of neat. So, you know, we know that, you know, we gave mom all the options that she could want, and we trust her to put them where the baby should be. But again, if you don't give them those options, you know, mom's kind of pigeonholed into that, and that might be where some people are getting all one gender because their tank is just at one temperature. So we've kind of given them those options, and like I said, we've had much better luck just leaving them in there. Their eggs are so fragile that it's, you know, I think if you look at them wrong, they crack, and that's really disheartening.
Yeah, they're like Pictus eggs. Yeah, like the Pictus. They're just so fragile. So I leave them. And for a while I was leaving the babies, but then it got too hard with the 1/16, you know, feeding 3 to 4 different tanks. And I was like, I'm just going to put all the babies together. That way, you know, because also the crickets will get hot and they'll die quickly, you know, so you want to make sure that they're all getting that size cricket.
Your point about giving them options, and I say this every doggone show, and viewers, I'm sorry for saying it again, but you know, we've had the key word in the hobby now is enrichment, and give them toys and things to play with. That shouldn't be the word. It's the word in the hobby. The key word, the popular word should be gradient. Give them options. Give them a big enough enclosure. The big enclosure isn't so for cohabitation and all that. It's options. Give them options. So sorry I'm stepping off of my soapbox now and getting back to the show with you. Tell me, I think people struggle. I struggle. I'll admit it. I struggle with the substrate and keeping an area a little bit moist. Thank you. A little bit moist. And I can't get that exact misting. And let me just dump the water in. How do you keep an area moist enough for them, damp enough for them to burrow in?
Dump the water.
Water in.
I mean, yeah.
Well, that you kind of just set off a section where, you know, if you're dealing with sand substrate, we mix a lot of our soil substrates in house. So you literally take a handful of ABG, which is the Atlanta Botanical Garden Blend, or something comparable to that, something that's got some peat in it, a little bit of orchid bark, because that gives you drainage. I think, you know, the 5 ingredients that go into the Atlanta Botanical Garden Blend are there for a reason. They allow it to maintain moisture. They allow it to drain. And then when you mix that in with the sand, I think that you've created that little microclimate. And in all seriousness,
the Stenos don't have that. The Stenos are just straight sand.
But in
the wedge snouts, though, we do. Yeah.
But I think a lot of them.
Yeah, it just depends on the tank. So like the
Okay.
stenos, yeah, with the stenos, I mist them and I make sure that they have water bowls. Make sure that their waters are full. But then the tanks that Paul's talking about, that we do mix the ABG with the sand because the wedge snouts definitely need that more moist area because they burrow more in the bushes, like in the roots of the bushes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so they need a little bit more moisture. So literally, like you were just saying, you kind of just
Dump it in.
douse that, yeah, and you dump that in because they have that basking spot that's going to dry up anyways. But then the other half where their water bowl is, you don't need to be all fancy. You just get that water in the water bowl, and if it saturates some of the other parts, it is okay for that to happen because that's in the wild. The water would collect in those roots areas where they grow and
So
live.
just bring the garden hose in, put a block on it and turn on the faucet and just let it go. Walk away and watch your favorite soap opera or sports.
You know,
Yeah, I use a
once,
spray bottle, but
once
yeah.
they break out the lifeboats, I think it's usually time to cut off the water. But
Yeah.
it's cute. They have little oars and they kind of do their thing.
Oh my
So.
gosh, you're such a jerk.
So
No,
I'm
you
going to
don't
tell this
touch her
story.
that much.
I'm going to tell this story really quick. So again, viewers can comment and criticize me, but I had a misting system on my 10 gallons and I kept Chondrodactylus pulitzeri on the bottom. And I didn't attend the bottom that much because it's hard now to get down and work super, super low. But anyways, misting system and it stuck one day. And literally, I had everything stacked up because they like, to be in crevices and everything. And there was probably about 2 inches of water in that tank. And they were all, up like this. They weren't in the water. They were up, but there wasn't one chondro that wasn't right on top of the top slate. Yeah. So
Trying to get away.
yeah, I'm not a good keeper. I should stop keeping geckos.
No.
That whole misting system.
Yeah, that misting system went away that day. It was like, I'm going to do this
Yeah.
by hand so I can watch this stuff. So folks, you're doing so great with these geckos. Tell me a little bit about your business and how you've advanced the last couple of years. And how do you do business? Are you doing like Palm Street and Morph Market and all these other, your website? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, me. So we are continuously always growing our business. A lot of times we will decide on a new species because one, we love it and we just think it's cool, or if nobody's working with them and we get lucky enough to get some stock in, or just demand that customers are like, hey, we really love this animal and really want to work with it. See you guys work with it. So we are constantly expanding our collection. We do a lot of our stuff right now on Facebook and Instagram. We do a lot with Palm Street. We do have a little store up with Palm Street. We do lives as much as we can. Just going to keep talking. We do a lot of.
We still do a lot of expos. We travel up and down on the eastern seaboard, and we try and intermix lives with our expos.
Nice. Where do you see yourselves growing in the next couple of years?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, we are trying to move our personal home so we can move our business. Are trying to grow our dart frogs again. So we do see ourselves expanding what we have. I would like to get back to where we had as many as animals like we did with our pet store, and do kind of the bigger shows. We are going like up to Michigan in a couple weeks, which we've never gone there before. So we are trying to expand. Hopefully in the next year, Paul can quit his 9-to-5 job and help me take on this business, so we can expand that. But we'll just continue to do what we do on, like, to talk with the customers ahead of time. We don't like the click and order and ship out. We do like to have communication with our customers. I guess just kind of old fashioned, make sure they're 100%, have all the information that they need, that they're ready for it. So a lot of people are always telling us you need to get a website, and we're not that keen on just click and order. We do, like I said, we like to know if they have questions, and we like to ask them if they have questions.
We always tell people that we're not being successful if the customer's not successful. And I think that's really the way that we like to gauge our business. And it's something that's allowed us to grow, and people understand, we are there for your customer service. You can reach out and contact us. You go through the social medias, go through Facebook, go through Instagram, really reach out to us that way. It is something that we check all the time. So it really is the best way to get a hold of us. You're always going to get a hold of one of us. That's the great thing about being a mom and pop. You're either going to get mom or you're going to get pop. And, we both know which our strengths are as far as the husbandry and the questions goes. And then that lets us make sure that people are ready. And like Lindsay was saying, the websites are great, but, our goal is to have more of an educational website with a lot of resources on there. And then, oh, by the way, you can reach out to us and inquire about this animal because we do have babies. So it'd be more of just an availability list on there so that we can continue to do that personal one-on-one customer service. I think it's a lot harder, and it might take a little bit longer, but I think in the end, the animals do better, and the customer's happier, and they have a much better experience. And in the end, that's really what's important.
I absolutely love that philosophy. You guys are planning on not being a Walmart. Click, and send it out, and somebody bought something. That's admirable, very admirable. Guys, we've kept you a long time here. We've covered a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. We have to have a session 2 in the near future because there's so many animals that I didn't ask you about, and we're going to have to do that in a session 2. I greatly appreciate your time tonight. I want to thank you, first of all, for being such a great donor to the 12 Supreme Days of Christmas. I also want to thank you for so much that you guys do in this community. I want to tell everybody, all of Assure Things Exotics, all the links are going to be in this video's description. So click everyone. Follow, like, comment, do all that social media stuff because these people deserve it. Paul, Lindsay, thank you so much for being on this show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. We appreciate your time too. So thank you for allowing us to get on here.
Yeah, and I want to say, Wally, thank you so much for reaching out. This is actually a podcast together that we've done. Paul's done quite a few, educational, but this is the first time that we've done something just reaching out.
Cool.
This would not have been a show without both of you. So I greatly
giving us this opportunity to talk, and then also giving us the opportunity to donate to the 12 Days of Supreme Gecko. So we appreciate that.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
our pleasure entirely. Entirely. And the show wouldn't have been anything without the both of you. So show number 2 will be with you and you, Paul and Lindsay. So thanks again. Good night, everybody.